Great. So welcome to you all to the first of the second annual series of research seminars. Really, really excited to have this series continue. We had a great experience last year, and we continue to have a growing team that's working actively on research and contributing to the university in so many ways all around the world. So thank you to everyone who's already joined. And I know we'll have some more people coming on in the next few minutes. We're not going to do introductions of everyone because I think we know most people. But I would like to point out a few folks that are joining us that maybe some of you or many of you don't know, and also feel free as we're going along if you would like to introduce yourself or you know, provide another update of something you're working on that's not mentioned in the conversation. Feel free to do that in the chat. I will not promise to keep up with the chat during the meeting, but if there's something, we'll you know, review it later and make sure we capture anything there. So feel free to have a parallel conversation on the chat if you would like to. Two folks that I just want to point out to you all because they're special guests and or really important new members of our team. First of all, Robin Barr is with us from the Forest Trust, who we're talking with potential collaborations with. She's based on the west coast of the United States and is joining the seminar to learn more about us. So I think you see her showing up as Robin there, and she'll be with us. So we're glad to have her. Also want to mention Dan Wessner, who is a new faculty member, but also has been a very big part of Future Generation's history, and we're so glad to have him back on our team. So I know you'll be hearing more from him over the coming weeks and months and going forward. So I think we'll leave it there for the purpose of this call, but just wanted to sort of orient everyone. And it's great to see alumni, faculty, RADs, current students, all joining us from around the world. So welcome to you all. Before we launch into the agenda, I'm going to turn over to our president, Daniel Taylor, to just make a welcoming remark to you all as well. So over to you, Daniel.
Yes, well, thank you, Micah, and thank you, everybody, for signing in. That's the group that's on the active Zoom call now, but what we are finding is that many people are joining on the recorded sessions. So I welcome those who are coming on in a recorded session. We look forward to being able to get your participation, and we thank you for your participation in the past. I just want to emphasize that Future Generations University, as we have made the move from a graduate school to university, is really prioritizing research. And so we very much desire a participation from our global friends and colleagues. There is an empty niche, there's an empty opportunity, we believe, in terms of developing a research methods and a research dialogue around applied community change. Most universities do an excellent job in the traditional research space, but we believe that there is a gap in terms of taking that traditional knowledge and connecting it to the needs of communities, specifically at the community.
Oops.
She's been working hard all summer to advance the clarity of this. In 1 month, we will be having what we call Faculty College here. And at that time, we will have a approved and more finalized research strategy, which we expect will guide our university for the next several years. But this meeting, especially today, is going to sort of give a chance to give you a first look at what that strategy is going to be like, and It is not finalized, and we very much look forward to your suggestions, both during this session and also sending it in with written comments, because we want to find a research strategy that truly helps communities. This is to my mind, why I am going to be putting the budget behind this project, because we want to come up with a methodology that helps communities, and that's a different emphasis than much of research practice. So with that, making that point vigorously, we're here to help communities, and we want to bring evidence to that discussion. Back to you, Micah. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Daniel. Great. So I'm going to share my screen and a few slides here. And just again to welcome you all to the first of a series of research seminars. I think in the email that came out with this, there are the dates for the upcoming seminars through the end of this calendar year, but the seminars will continue into 2018 as well, every second Tuesday of the month. So if you need to plan ahead, you'll know when they will be. So today we have a number of things to cover, so we're definitely going to keep moving here. And if we launch into an interesting discussion that can't be finished in this call, we do welcome further input and ideas. And a number of these topics, particularly, upcoming opportunities and the strategy for research going forward, is something we'll be talking about more at the upcoming faculty college as well. So this is kind of a beginning to that conversation. So we'll cover a couple housekeeping things, talk about where we are in terms of research now. Do want to give a brief update on the Everyday Peace Indicators research effort that has just wrapped up in terms of fieldwork, and we're now working on reporting and next steps building from there. Number of opportunities to get involved with research at Future Generations, and then finally getting some ideas from you about how we can make the best use out of the seminars that we have coming up. So in terms of housekeeping, the main thing on these Zoom calls, I think most of us at this point are quite veteran with this system, and I think we're doing very well so far. But really the key thing is that if you're not talking, just keep your microphone muted so that we don't have any background noise. But however, do feel free to participate. If you want to add a comment or have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and jump right in. Also, feel free to add your comments and questions on chat. I may not be able to keep up depending on how active the chat box is, but we'll make sure we do get to them one way or another. So make yourself heard if you want to contribute to the conversation. We really would love to hear from you. If you have technical problems that can't figure out, most of the time the Zoom platform has worked very well for us, but if you do end up having problems, feel free to contact Jonathan. He's our IT person, jonathan.wilkins@future.edu, and he's very responsive to help you figure out what might be causing any problems. So finally, just to say that we're recording the session and we'll put it on YouTube for our own use, and the slides and the recording from today will be sent out as a follow-up email. So you'll be getting that later today. So on we go. The first main point of this seminar is for me as the director of research to kind of frame and paint a picture of where we are in terms of research at the university. And I think this is a really exciting time because as we'll see, if we look at the history, we have a long and distinguished history of doing really diverse research projects, going back to 1992 when FutureGenerations.org was first founded, and then really building on that with some field-informing, really important work on conservation and health, a concerted effort in peace building about 10 years ago, ongoing, development and then evolution and testing and validation of seed scale by faculty and alumni and students alike. And then this investment in our 3 endowed professors who are doing really important research in their respective fields at the university. So just to say a bit of where we came from, certainly we could talk much more about this, and we
Micah,
probably know. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Micah, I'm just interrupting. One of our endowed professors happens to be in the outback of Australia today, Bob Fleming, and he's working on key indicators in natural history. So I just want to say that we are very active, and I just want to emphasize that Bob Fleming is in the outback of Australia and happens to be with our primary donor. So it's sort of a fun thing. Always there's activity in Future Generations in surprising places. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it was
great. So we have, yes, wonderful people, and I just got 2 really interesting research activities updates from our alumni yesterday, so there's a lot going on. Just to maybe emphasize that point, if we look at, beyond where we've come from, which is great, it's just exciting to see how many different activities we have going on right now. And this is really only some examples. There's way more than this going on, and probably actually quite a lot that I don't even know about. But just to sort of pick out a few here, and feel free to, read the rest as we're talking here, but we're starting the seminar series again. It's great to have you all here. We've just wrapped up the Everyday Peace Indicators project. We're publishing books and articles. We've had presence at a number of conferences over the last few months. And it's just exciting to see some of the new partnerships. We've got a partnership on maple syrup research here in West Virginia with the Department of Agriculture, and Laura's been publishing, and we've had student practicums, and it's just wonderful. We've got so many things happening here, and really, starting to find ways to share that information better, using the seminar, using our blog. We'll talk more about some of the other opportunities, and just really lifting up how much we are doing. So if we look briefly ahead, we'll be then digging a bit more into what some of the opportunities look like within this future-focused agenda, and a chance to talk about how we can be helpful in this as well. We are really committed, as a budding university, to strengthen our research portfolio, to strengthen the resources that we offer to our partners, our faculty, our alumni, our students, and to really continue working on defining our niche. We recognize that we can't and we shouldn't, compete with other universities that are really excellent at the kind of research that they do, and really focusing on how do we do research that is applied, that is community-based, that is multi-sectoral, and that's seed scale oriented, and seed scale oriented broadly. I mean, seed scale is kind of our institutional framework for community development. It has, principles and tasks and criteria and, all these different components. And so as a kind of an overarching way to find synergies and see how all the different pieces tie together, kind of keeping seed scale in mind as we look at research opportunities. And within all of that, more as a process piece, really having communities be involved as an agent in the process of research. And we'll talk a bit more about that. And then what we're doing more on the administrative side is trying to make the administrative processes for how we, bring research ideas and grant proposals and, research projects through the university, and trying to make them as clear and user-friendly as possible, so that certainly our faculty who already use them can, be more clear on how this works and how we can help, and then also making sure that it's clear that, for alumni, students, partners, that this process is also available to you and how it works. So that's a bit about where we're headed. Trying to find my arrow. So just to dig into, we've had some debate over the last couple of years, and we will continue this dialogue at Faculty College about what we mean when we say applied research. And of course, there are a number of schools of thought, many different definitions, but the key point from the conversations that I've been part of and just kind of seeing what we do and where we're trying to get as a university, if our research is not informing policies, programs, strategic plans, community work plans, evaluation systems, if it's not really directly relevant to bringing about changes to make all of these kinds of plans and processes and accountability structures work better for communities, then it's not really being applied. And we want to make sure that it really is accessible and useful to the communities that we're working with. And so we're working on this definition of rigor, and this is something we'll be talking about at Faculty College, but really making sure that it's relevant and accessible to the different stakeholders that are involved in the communities where we work. And kind of putting that to the forefront and using that to help inform, how we build an argument for rigor when someone else coming in and looking at our research might have different criteria for rigor, but being able to really start with what we care about and be able to articulate that well. So that's where we're coming from, and your input on this is very much welcomed as we move forward in the coming weeks and months. Other part of this is, what do we mean by community-based? Again, number of definitions, number of schools of thought out there, probably different for every field. I know the most about how the health sector would define this. But I think as an overarching perspective for the university, just really wanting to focus on how we engage with communities as collaborators, as leaders, in terms of shaping, conducting, and using the findings of research. And often that means giving up some level of control over the research direction, over the process, over what happens with the findings, and, navigating through that. And every research project is different, but really wanting to make sure that the communities that we are working with have access to the findings, that they understand the findings, that they're part of directing what happens next. So that's what we mean. And again, input clarifications are welcome on this as we move forward. We won't spend a lot of time on it now, although we do have a couple minutes here. So maybe I'll just pause before we move on to the EPI project. And if anyone would like to make immediate comments on this, feel free. So I'll stop sharing here so that we can see each other.
Laura, this is Daniel, and I really want to emphasize the word agent that you mentioned before. By agent, we don't mean communities are the targets. We don't mean that communities are free labor that we take advantage of. We mean that communities are full partners. And you mentioned the role of control. Typically, research workers feel that they must control the project. And in our work, certainly the seed scale, we found that researchers learn a lot by letting go of control. Their ideas expand. So I wanted to sort of stress this aspect that you've mentioned, because we're really talking about a much more collaborative process that gets messy very quickly than traditional research methods. At least that's what we have found to work better in the past, over the last 25 years. So thank you for your summary. I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points that you made, Laura.
Micah.
Pardon me.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, I had a question, Micah, or just a comment that when we're talking about communities and research, it would be good to get a clear definition of what we mean by community, because there are many different types of communities by size. For example, a very small rural community that would have a pyramidal type of leadership with one leader, and then a larger community which has several different social groups, and then even a rural town that would be, kind of like multi-component. So I think we need to be very clear on what size or what type of community we were dealing with, and what we mean by, getting community involved in research. So.
Sure. And, all of those different kinds of communities are going to have different needs, different, ways of engaging them, for sure. But I mean, I think the the default definition of community is a group of people who share something in common and have the potential of acting together, right? I mean, that's at least where we're starting as a seed scale definition. So whether that solves all our problems in every scenario, probably not, but I think that's at least our common starting point. Other comments?
Okay.
Micah, it's Chris. Just a quick comment on your discussion of rigor. I think rigor in research resides in the research process. Questions arise about what data to collect to support the research. What are the appropriate methodologies for analysis of the research? And ultimately, once the research is conducted, subjecting it to some kind of effective review, peer review or whatever, that helps validate the rigor with which the research was conducted, and therefore the results of the research achieve some level of what we're referring to as rigor. And I think there's a kind of a potentially delicate balancing between what Daniel talked about in terms of control of the process and the achievement of rigor that we need to be thoughtful about and careful about.
Chris, this is exactly the sort of collaborative discussion that we need to have going. And in my experience, what academics consider rigor, communities consider, pardon the term, bullshit. But the academic rigor is often not verified at the community level. And so this is, your point about rigor is very, very important. We need something that is validated at the community level if we're going to be community-based work. And how we do that, I do not have the answer for. I just know that the traditional definition of rigor doesn't work. And perhaps in your statement about peer review is the key domain that we need to focus on, because if a community is part of the peer review, then they can be saying whether it is rigorous or not. But we're exploring this whole field, and my guess is it will take several years to be able to answer your rigor question. But I sure know that as I've gone into the field with what I consider to be rigorous research, it's been rejected by communities. So I don't have the answer, and I'm endorsing your question. Thank you.
Hi, this is Robin. I love that statement and this question of rigor, and I was just reflecting that when I think about rigor with communities, a huge portion of that is how many voices and what diversity of voices in the community were involved in the research process. So I think also, there's an element that standard methodology can bring to ensure that the loudest voices or the most powerful voices don't overrule the diverse voices and the voices that often aren't heard. So just in this discussion of rigor, I would add that element to it.
Super. Thank you so much, Robin. Other comments? Okay. Well, I'd love to hear more. We will be talking about this in greater depth at the upcoming Faculty College. So this is a chance to reflect in the next couple weeks as we come up to that meeting at the beginning of October. So I'm going to keep moving here and briefly provide sort of an overview update of where we are on the Everyday Peace Indicators project. And then Abdi Shakur is on the call. He was one of the implementers who worked in Somaliland on this. So I will also give him an opportunity just to comment for a couple minutes on his experience being part of this process. If anyone else is on the call that I've happen to miss who did this, let me know. So basically, we worked with USIP, building on their methodology that they had developed for going through a qualitative, sort of iterative process with communities to identify locally relevant indicators of peace and conflict in their situations. USIP had implemented this process in 4 countries, including Uganda and I think Zimbabwe, possibly South Africa, and maybe they had a 4th country. Anyway, I don't remember. But it's on their website. There's an everydaypeaceindicators.org website, which has a lot of information about what they've done. So we adapted that methodology and added a local expert perspective, so that we had a community perspective and a local expert perspective to sort of triangulate for each country. We selected an urban and a rural site in each country, and we ended up being able to complete the whole iterative indicator identification process in 8 countries, which you can see on the map here, a number in sub-Saharan Africa, but also a team in Nepal, a team in Afghanistan, and an alum in Guyana who worked on this. So you can see all of their smiling faces on the left-hand side there. It's been a wonderful team to work with. Right now we're in the process of taking all of the country level reports and putting them together into a global report that summarizes the findings and the process and what we've done. Abdi Shakur is actually going to be the first author on that global report, and so he's been working very hard along with me and Fisaha to kind of put it all, get a whole outline and the big structure of it together, and then we were getting input from the country teams that worked on this project as well. So we're very excited. This has been another foray into key indicators, which is, of course, a part of Seed Scale, an opportunity to work with a number of great alumni and current students, and Sushila, who's on our faculty, who's based in Nepal. So we're excited, and part of the next phase of work, which we'll be talking about here in a few minutes, is how do we build on this experience? So let me hand over to you, Abdi Shakur, if you want to add any comments, either as an implementer of the project in Somaliland, and or your experience working to put together this global report of all of your colleagues' field work and bringing it together. So over to you.
Thank you, Mikey. This project was not, the peace building issue was not new to me, but doing these focus group discussions and meeting with experts, it was a new learning experience for me, because my thought of peace building was more on theoretical thing, but meeting with different communities in urban and rural sites and asking same questions of what they mean or what peace means to them, and how do they measure, and if they are more at peace or less at peace. It was a learning experience actually, and that's why in my strategic plan I want to know whether different regions in Somaliland have different indicators or different measurements. Since I covered in the western regions, I am planning to see how eastern regions might also measure whether they are more at peace or less at peace. Also, I will try in the future to look at whether the pastoralist communities and agro-pastoralist communities have different perceptions of peace, and how do they measure, what indicators they measure if they are more at peace or less at peace. So I will say it was a learning experience I enjoyed, and I will keep doing in the future to learn from the community and know what people think and how they think and what factors they use when measuring something, whether it's political, peace, or economic and development, or other sectors of life. So this was a learning experience for me, and I'm very much in that to participate this project. Thank you, Mikey.
Great. Thank you so much, Abdi Shakur. It's been really an honor and a joy to work with this whole team. The reason we haven't explained this in a lot of depth is that we presented on it in a seminar in the spring, and there's also been a recent blog post on our North Mountain Press blog site, and we'll be sharing that link here in a minute too. So there's a lot more background about the methods and what we did in those previous sort of sharing on this project. But if anyone does have questions about anything that we could answer here for a few minutes, I'm happy to take questions too. So if you have any, feel free to jump in. All right, hearing none. Oh, go ahead.
I guess I have a question about, I think it's a very interesting project, and I think job, all the people in the field, the alumni, I'm sure it was a great experience, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the final report on this. And I was just wondering, just if you could comment on how you see using the results that would be used for the community, following from our discussion this morning, results that you would be, feeding back immediately to a community from its own findings, from its own situation, versus taking findings from 20 different sites and putting them all together and coming out with final conclusions, and trying to generalize. So, I guess it's the tension between generalization of findings and specificity of findings to each place, and how you see that in this coming out in this type of project with so many different sites.
Great.
And maybe that question also gets to rigor somehow. I'm not sure how, but somehow it does.
Great, thanks, Laura. Abdi Shakur, would you like to answer from your experience?
Thank you, Laura. Each member of implementers conducted in 8 different focus group discussions in 2 different sites. One was rural and the other one was urban. And the focus group discussions generated a number of issues. What we did was we compiled all the long list of their findings. Then we held one verification and focus group discussion in each site, where members of different 4 groups were invited. We invited 2 to 3 members in each group, so that they may get to know what others said and reduce the number to agree to vote, reaching 10 to 12 indicators in each site. That's how we come up with the final findings for each country. And in the global report, we will combine the 8 different countries of the research focus, and we will see the difference. Where are the similarities? Where are the differences? And what factors might force those differences? In some places, there are the sites where war-torn societies like Afghanistan, while others there's a relative peace or the country is peaceful. But it's still how people perceive peace and how they measure matters. So I will hand over to Mikey to add on.
Thanks, Abdi Shakur. I think that was a good summary of the methodology, which I think definitely was focused on, how do we have communities kind of generate their own final indicators, so that it's not that we have to then, we do analysis and we take findings back to them, but that they're really part of coming to that final conclusion of, what could we be measuring, what makes sense in our particular community. And then what we've done as the last phase of the EPI project is really, working with some agency in the community, whether it's a local organization or, a local coordinating committee of some kind, or, some local entity that has a work plan or has a strategic plan, or, has a way of kind of taking these metrics forward and building them into ongoing monitoring work in the community. And then I want to say something about the global level too, but I see that Sushila and Vincent are on the call now, and then also Freyo had, I think, a really important and interesting idea for Africa in particular. So also I want to give Freyo an opportunity to make a comment. But I think what we as a university are really trying to do by bringing the findings together is two things. So one of them being able to raise the profile of this as a process and a methodology, and also to be able to kind of bring together a critical mass of experience, whether it's by region or globally, to say, yes, we've got different indicators for different communities, but what can other communities learn from this process? What could change makers or decision makers at a higher level be able to understand from a whole set of communities that have gone through this process, about how to approach understanding or measuring or addressing peace and conflict issues or things in other sectors as we move forward. So that's what I would say. Sushila, Vincent, Freyo, would any of you like to add? I'm not sure when you joined into the conversation. So Lara's original question was how we make sure that the findings of EPI are useful to communities, and also is there something different we're trying to get at or understand by kind of generalizability and bringing the findings from multiple sites together? So does anyone want to add to that?
Hi, Micah. This is Sushila.
Hi, Sushila.
Well, I think I heard Abdi Shakur's very interesting use of the tool. And by the way, we use that, and then looking at the perspective, the methodology, and the country going into from instability to the stable state. It's a real challenge to look at the methodology, because no one has ever documented as such about the everyday peace indicators actually going out to the field. So the reformation with the district level, now the district has the regions and the district has been made so powerful that the consequences are going to be very different, what it means to the urban, to the rural people. Because we mentioned about the customary practices that used to bind these people for peace, and then of course some customary practices hindering peace. So that methodology, I think, would be very useful for us to still explore in other areas, because the diversity within the community and the geography are very different. And myself and my co-partner Chiranjeevi was thinking maybe have a presentation at the Peace Ministry and said what we can do further with these indicators, and then develop a plan even with the federal states now to look at it, what could be the peace indicators, both looking at the customary practices and the social practices that has evolved now. So that could be a very good indicator and a tool for us to still explore.
Great. Thank you very much, Sushila. Vincent, do you want to add anything from your experience in Uganda?
Yes, first I want to apologize for joining the meeting late. I was busy with the community lab. The first experience I had with the research in the communities were twofold. One was that within the urban area, it was very difficult to work with the people, because every time they are busy with their own work. Most of them are working class. And so to bring them together was quite different compared to the community. From the community side, it was very easy to mobilize communities for the meeting, and so it would take a shorter while to complete the interview with the communities than the urban area. Then the other second experience I experienced during this research is that the everyday peace for the urban people, they want peace, physical security for them because they are already working. Their works are already assured. So what the indicators show that they just need physical security to be able to work the work they are doing. On the other hand, from the community side, their indicators are directed to security for their natural resources, security for their livelihoods, option for natural resources that supplement the livestock. So the two communities were a little bit different in the kind of indicators for the peace for themselves. Otherwise, I thought I was going to miss out from the course on peace building, but this research at least brought me nearer to my colleagues who are doing concentration on peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent. Freya, do you want to add anything? You've been a great mentor, I think, particularly, well, to me and also to the African implementers, and you've sort of been watching this whole process. So do you want to add anything?
Yes, I think this exercise has been very useful, especially here in Africa from two perspectives. Most of the researchers who participated in the exercise are our current students, and of course we have alumni. So it's been an enriching experience for them and brings them closer to the community and partly answering what Laura raised as a question. Because it's also an empowering process, which also helps them to critically think about the indicators. I remember, how to demystify the whole issue of peace, to come up with indicators that are useful not only for researchers, but also for communities. That's one level. The second level is, okay, how can we make use of this research? How can we make it more action-oriented? And one idea that we're still entertaining is to feed into the policy framework, by way of having some policy documents, policy ideas to the areas that are affected by a conflict in the region. And this, we believe, will give policymakers insights about peace and then the indicators of peace, and also how to engage communities. So this is an ongoing process that I would like to see developing further, but these are the ideas that we've been entertaining, and the process has been, of course, very, very rewarding and educational. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Freyo. Thank you to everyone. If I missed someone else who's joined who was part of this project, please jump in. I can't see the whole list of people right now. Any burning comments about this? We need to move on very soon here, but if anyone else would like to add, I think we covered a lot of ground. Laura, I hope we at least partially answered your question, and I'm happy to keep thinking about how we make our case and our process even more clear. So any other comments? All right. Thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I do think it's an ongoing process that we will continue to build on and find additional synergies and opportunities to learn from it and work together. So it's been a great experience. Okay. I want to cover just, I think, 2 more slides here, and then we'll open up for a few minutes to talk about other ideas for how we can make the best use of this year's series of seminars. But I want to cover first a few opportunities to get involved with research here at the university. Many of you, or some of you at least, are already involved with research, and you may know of other opportunities as well, so we can keep adapting and growing this list. But kind of from an institutional perspective, we have a few things that I think are really important, and we'll be working on them over the coming months and years probably. So first of all, we really do encourage all of you to present in the seminars. If you have an idea for a project, if you're currently implementing a project, if you've done a research project and you're working on bringing the findings together, figuring out how to disseminate it, figuring out what the next step is, we'd love to hear from people working on any phase of the research process. So we'll have seminars through May of next year, again every month. So number of slots are available to present work that you have going on around the world, and we love to hear what different people are working on. So feel free to be in touch with me. We try to solidify a topic for the coming month by the beginning of that month. So for example, by the beginning of October here in 2 weeks or so, we'll have a plan for the October one, and we've got a number of ideas floating around, but we can usually find space. So love to hear from you. And usually what we try to do is a skills, more methods, theory section at the beginning of the seminar that might cover tools that we have available, or a particular method that someone's interested in, or something like that. And then the second half is more of a field perspective of an actual project that someone's working on, to get input and discuss among our team. So that's one option. The second option is that we have an active blog for the university. It's not only research, but there's a lot of research that gets described and shared there. For example, EPI, but also a number of our alumni's work and other things that are going on, and important progress of faculty as things get published and move forward. So that's another opportunity. Feel free to get in touch with me to figure out how that blog process works. But we also have a great staff member here named Megan, whom I think many of you have already interacted with. And if you haven't, would encourage you to get in touch with her. She manages the blog content and will work with you to put together a post. So that's a second way that we have ongoing within the university to share work that you're doing and contribute to our overall agenda and process here. Really excitingly, we are going to launch an everyday health indicators and an everyday conservation indicators effort, building on the EPI experience from this year. We'll start sometime in early 2018. We'll see exactly what the timeline ends up looking like. We'll be learning from the experience with EPI, building on it, adapting some things. And we're going to need some help. So we will be hiring 2 part-time study coordinators for this. We'll have, a job description and some more specifics on what this would look like. The people we hire to coordinate both the health effort and the conservation effort must have done EPI on this round. We need people who've, been through the methodology, who will be able to really help the next group of implementers that work on health and conservation. So we'll be putting that out and hope that some of our EPI colleagues will be interested in doing that. And then in addition, we'll be selecting sites to actually implement the methodology. So, working in communities and countries around the world with a number of you, hopefully. So more information is coming soon, but this is a really important investment of the university's resources. Last year, those resources went into peace, as you know, and now we're trying to put some attention and effort into other sectors where we have a history of working that are really important to what we do. So I'm really excited to see the momentum continue on this. Key indicators, as probably most of you know very well, are a key part of Seed Scale. We're really trying to strengthen the methodology that we have to identify good ones, and then figure out in the next couple of years how we bring this experience from multiple sectors around key indicators together as kind of a core contribution of the university to research in a number of these fields. So that is coming soon. The other thing that's coming soon, a little bit more nebulous at this point, but I think really important, and I'm so excited to be able to work more with the center, the .org global network on this, is to find a better way of matching the experience and knowledge and ideas that we have on research, and then all of the people within the university who are interested in and wanting to do more research, and be able to kind of match those mentor-mentee pairs, which could be faculty to faculty, faculty to alumni, alumni to current student, and just kind of finding a way to do a better job of knowing the resources that we have among our team and being able to link them with people who would like some help to get started or to grow their capacity and experience. So those are a number of things. I'm sure there are more, and we always love to hear ideas. So that's what we'll be spending the last few minutes of the seminar on. Before we open it up, though, I just also want to mention a few resources that are available to all of you. Again, I'm sure there are more, but these are kind of some key ones, and we'll be talking about for a few minutes other things that you think would be really helpful, and how we can make the whatever resources you think would be important available to you. So the first thing is connection with technical assistance. So there are a number of faculty and the alumni, the RADs, who are available to a reasonable degree, to answer questions, to try to help anyone in the university who's has a question or is running into a challenge with something related to research, to move forward. And I would certainly extend this to .org and probably to some of our board members too. And just we'll try to do our best to find someone who can help you if you do have a specific question. If you think you need a bigger, a higher level of technical support or collaboration, we also certainly can build technical assistance from an appropriate person, faculty member, whoever, into a proposal. If you're looking for a grant and you think you need, someone with more stats background or something, that's certainly something we can figure out how to do. Related to that, the university is also able to be a fiscal agent for grants if you need, to apply for a grant and have it go through a nonprofit with, a strong finance office and all of that. We do have policies and procedures on how to do that. We're working on making them more user-friendly and clear. As we speak, we'll be talking about them at the upcoming faculty college. And we would love to make sure that this process is clear, it's available, it's related to the IRB process. If you need to go through, if you're doing human subjects research and need an IRB approval, we also have that process available. Lastly, of course, we have, maybe not lastly, but we have the seminars on Zoom, which we've already talked about. And then we have a number of online databases for literature. We also have some faculty with pretty extensive experience using other search platforms like Google Scholar to really look for current literature on different topics. And so we'll actually be talking about this in an upcoming seminar of the resources we have available, strategies to get the most out of them, and just ways to get what you need if you want to do high quality research and have access to literature, ways that we can help make sure that that's possible. So I will end there. We have a slide that just says, what else would you like to see covered this year? How else can we become better enablers and facilitators as a university for this research process to all of you? I will stop sharing my screen so again we can see each other. I think we've got a good 5 minutes here. So would love to have comments, ideas from you, things we can cover in the seminar, other things the university might be able to do to help you and others. So the floor is open for comments, and great to have you all. And I think Daniel wants to say something.
Yeah, Micah, thank you very much. Excellent presentation, and thank you very much for your leadership in this as the university is developing the research program. I just want to put forward an analogy. When seed scale research began a quarter century ago, 25 years ago, there were two fields of research that were highly skeptical, and serious researchers did not think that PRAs, for instance, was good research. or good research method, or participatory action research was another field that was developing 25 years ago. And now they've worked on their challenges, they've been validated, and they are, I would say, part of the mainstream. You see them being done at a much wider variety of places. Robert Chambers is no longer considered a kook as he was 25 years ago. And so I think that we are at this sort of stage, especially with key indicators. Key indicators have been a technique, as I found out when I served on a National Science Foundation expert panel many years ago. Key indicators are something that experts have been using, they just didn't want to admit to it often. And so what I'm suggesting here that our research agenda is doing is developing a field, which we want to make rigorous, to go back to the term earlier, and that will happen only by partnerships and collaboration. Because research ultimately is not led by an individual, it's not led by an institution, it's led by partnerships and critique. And I think we are beginning a process that will probably take at least 5 years before we answer a lot of the hard questions that we have to answer. And we have ahead of us as examples the role of PAR, participatory action research, and PRAs as examples of research methods that have been roughly in the same space and gone ahead. And so I just lift these up as examples. But thank you again to everybody.
Thanks, Daniel. Other comments?
Hi, Micah. This is Luke. This has been a great presentation, and I've really enjoyed it. So truly just a comment or observation was sparked by something Freyo said, and this is coming as a rad about the positive academic benefit that active students or current students gained from participating in the EPI study while also being students, helping them with critical thought, critical reflection. And so an observation, I think, as we go forward is to think about ways that as we're doing things like a everyday piece of indicators of health or environment, to be thinking very clearly about how the tie-in with our own courses and the types, and even in some cases the faculty members, as we're using e-portfolios and things like this as we move forward, so that the work students are doing on research might be credit-bearing, and also the research projects learn from some really good academic work that our students are already doing at the community level. As an example, I'll just say that we had we asked in going to scale last term, every student to do as their community lab work to identify and test a series of indicators that related to the growth of their work and evolving out of these 5 criteria of seed scale. Now, some cases those were local indicators, some were much more robust than others. However, what I got from that as somebody who's been doing community work and research for a long time was a big long list of potential indicators that others could go use, test, and validate in some cases in a number of different sectors. And so I'm just thinking that we have to be always scouting for these areas of overlap and trying to build off of them. And so that's my comment.
Great. Thank you very much, Luke. I see a comment from Ikwo in the chat asking about user-friendly academic journals. This is a really important question, I think, and there are so many journals out there, and depending on which field you're working in, it's a completely different set of journals, health journals or conservation journals or whatever it is. if you are looking for a journal for something specific, though, feel free to be in touch, and we'll be happy to help you scope around and see what expertise, experience we have among our team that's maybe worked in a similar field, and we're happy to to point out what we know, depending on what kind of a journal anyone is looking for. The second part of the question from Ikwo is asking about future generation support for alumni research, alumni doing independent research. So the first thing is that we have annual call through the Future.org, the global network for collaboration grants, which is internal university funding for projects or research. So that's an opportunity. Secondly, being involved with linking your work with university work, like the Key Indicators project, is certainly an opportunity. Beyond that, I mean, we're not a foundation, so it's. But I think that we certainly would like to enable alumni work, and so finding ways that we can look for synergy, potentially look for additional resources together, and provide mentorship and collaboration within the team as to the extent possible. Certainly a starting point. And as we keep moving forward and gain experience, I think we may find many other ways to engage and also support alumni as well. So if you have specific ideas and needs, feel free to be in touch anytime. That goes for everyone. Laura, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I had just one more. Sorry. From the comment that Daniel was making before about PRA and PAR as kind of the precedent to kind of where future generations is, wanting to step off from. It would be interesting to have it in writing, see in writing kind of how we see this these or everyday indicators strategy compared to those other two. How we differ, how we see it differing from PRA and PAR, and at the same time also how it's different, what we're doing to even just going into a community and doing focus groups. It would be interesting just, to be able to clarify that and articulate that a little bit better, even to, just even where we are now, so that we can keep working on that kind of distinction, making that distinction as we move forward.
Laura, a quick response. We tried to spend several pages in the second edition of Just and Lasting Change, trying to tie it in with some of these other fields. So we've started this process, and it has been very helpful to me if you've been getting letters back from it. Luke has done a good bit of work on that area. It's important. It's a very important point, but we have already tried to make it very clear that the key indicators work of seed scale ties into these broader fields. And we've noted it both in empowerment and in this new second edition. And for everybody else on this discussion, I just want to say that's a good place to start. Let's keep going.
Okay, thank you. I've also noted down those questions, and I think they're important. So thank you all very much. We're at a few minutes after 10, so I think we're going to wrap up the meeting here. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you all again next month, if not hopefully much sooner, on another other calls and discussions. And really appreciate everyone being here and all of your contributions. Feel free to be in touch by email anytime.